Welcome to Dr.Deepa Dahake's NEET Biology, and in today's session we will begin with the second chapter of class 12th biology, as you appear that the sexual reproduction in flowering plant. So let's begin with the chapter. In this session we mainly study about what is flower and what are the different terms regarding flower are used in entire chapter. So stay connected with the session. Now here again, when we use the term flowering plant, that means you remember the flowering plants are generally angiosperms. So in class 11th you already study about the kingdom Plantae, and in kingdom Plantae algae, bryophyta, pteridophyta, gymnosperm and angiosperms आप study करते हैं. So that category of the plant to whom which below we use the term angiosperms, they are commonly called as flowering plant. So in this chapter we mainly study what are the different events take place during the sexual reproduction. So this you remember, angiosperm or flowering plants both are the synonymous for each other. When we study about angiosperms or flowering plant, so you remember in plants the flower formation is a unique phenomena. In most of the plant, flower is seasonally appeared or flowers are blooms seasonally. Every season, every year we observe the phenomena of flowering, like mango and papaya, rose you observe commonly. In bamboo already we study in our first chapter. Bamboo show the flowering phenomena once in a lifetime, whereas the Neelakuranji or Strobilanthes kunthiana is the plant where the flowering is take place once in a 12 year. So this part you remember again regarding the flowering. Now what is flower? Directly we come towards first about the flower, and then we come strictly according to the NCERT here. Whatever I taught, that you remember the topics and the sessions are strictly according to NCERT we follow. So here angiosperm when we study, so here first we study what is flower. When we study about flower, so here you remember flower is called as modified shoot. General definition you remember, flower is a modified shoot. Or you remember when we study about flower, so you remember it is a reproductive organ of the plant. So this part you remember, it is a modified shoot or it is called as reproductive organ in angiosperm, because gymnosperms are flowerless plant. So reproductive organ, and whenever flowering is appear in any of the plant, that means you remember the plant is enter in the phase of reproduction. Now when we come towards the flower, so here you remember flowers are of two types. Either the flower is called complete flower or it is called incomplete flower. Now what do we understand by complete and incomplete? Complete flower means when all the four whorls are present, then the flower is said to be complete flower, and four whorls are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. और आप स्टडी कर रहे हैं sepals, petals, androecium and gynoecium. So when all the four whorls are present, then the flower is said to be complete flower. Complete flower you remember, generally the complete flowers are bisexual flower. This part you remember. Now when we come towards the incomplete flower or imperfect flower also term is used, and for complete, perfect flower term is used. Incomplete flower means any one whorl of the flower is completely absent. Any one whorl of the flower. When absent, then the flower is said to be incomplete. Such flowers generally unisexual. Either the flower is staminate or the flower is pistillate. This part you remember. Now you only study staminate flower means the flower with stamen. Pistillate means the flower with pistil. But question is generally asked, which of the whorl is absent in staminate flower? So you remember the gynoecium or pistil is absent in staminate, whereas in pistillate flower, calyx, corolla and pistils are present. That means the stamens or androecium, the third whorl of the flower is completely absent in pistillate flower. So this part you remember. Now the terms when we come towards structure of flower, so we here study about the whorls of flower or we study about the parts of flower. Okay, now you study parts of flower. So generally you remember there are 4 parts of flower and we come from outer towards the inner. Inner means towards the center part of the flower. So here you remember outer part. The outermost whorl of the flower is said to be calyx. The second whorl of the flower is called corolla. The third whorl of the flower is called androecium, and the innermost whorl or the central whorl of the flower is called gynoecium. This part you remember. Okay. Now what are their single unit? These are the whorls. 4 whorls are there or 4 parts are there. And now what are their units? So when we study about the units, so here you remember unit means the sepal calyx. The single unit of calyx is called sepal. The single unit of corolla is called petal. The androecium is represented by stamen. So stamen you remember, stamen is a single unit of flower. And next gynoecium you remember. So the pistil or you say carpel is a single unit of gynoecium. So these units are also you remember very well. Now when we study, so we also say the sepals and petals are the accessory whorls, whereas stamens and carpels are the essential whorls, because these whorls are essentially required for the formation of male and female gametes, whereas the presence or absence of sepal and petal never affect the process of reproduction. Therefore, they generally called as the accessory part of the flower. Now, on the position of sepals and petals, flowers you remember, if the sepals are fused, so sepals and petals you remember, the sepals may be fused as in case of datura, or they may be separate. Rose, lotus, China rose, number of flower आप appear कर रहे हैं. Fused, the term we used gamosepalous. Similarly, the flower is called polysepalous when the sepals are free from each other. Similarly, you remember when the petals are fused from each other, as in case of mostly example आप study कर रहे हैं for gamosepalous and gamopetalous flower of datura. So datura you show, remember the gamopetalous flowers are there, and similarly when the petals are free from each other, free petals you commonly appear in rose. So over there the term we used gamopetalous, the term we use the polypetalous. So when the petals are free, flower is called gamopetalous. When the petals are fused, then the flower is called as gamopetalous. So again here you remember the petals may be some petals either fused or you remember petals either free. If fused, then flower is called gamopetalous, and in case of free petals, flower is said to be polypetalous. So this part you remember very well. And about androecium and gynoecium, we separately study in details when we study about the androecium or stamen as a male reproductive organ and gynoecium as a female reproductive organ. Now you see, when we draw the structure of flower, so here we mainly first we draw the central part of the flower, that is all the floral parts you remember. All the floral parts are based on receptacle. That receptacle of the flower is called as thalamus. This part you remember. And all the floral parts which are present towards thalamus, they are called the proximal end of the floral part, and the part of sepal, petal, androecium or gynoecium which is present away from the thalamus, that is called as the distal end of that particular part. So this is the thalamus. Now here we see, this is the outermost wall, that is called as calyx, and then the innermost wall is present, second inner wall is present, that is the corolla. So diagram is that draw here for the China rose. So second wall, so this is the first wall. The first wall is called as calyx and its units are sepal. The second wall is corolla or units are petal. And then after, the third wall is there. Either the third wall, androecium or stamens are connected with thalamus, they are connected with style, or they may be connected with the petals. So this part you remember. So this is the third wall of the flower, that is the stamen you remember. Stamen is made up of two part, anther and filaments. And then the third wall you remember, it is called as pistil or it is called as commonly carpel. Carpel you remember, if singly inside the carpel you remember, one ovule is there, this part. So here you simply remember petals and sepals, accessory organs. If we study about the androecium or stamen, so stamen you remember, this is a general structure of a single stamen. Stamen when we study, so this long slender part of the stamen is called filament and this part is called as anther. And in each anther, you remember, in each anther the two lobes are there, and in every lobe two microsporangium are there. So total you remember 4 microsporangium or pollen sac are present inside anther. This part you remember. Filament when we study, so you remember this is the proximal part of the filament and this one become a distal end. So this is the proximal end and this is distal end. This part you remember very well because this question already asked in NEET exam recently. Within 3-year question paper you observe this question. After that, when we come towards the gynoecium, so gynoecium you remember, gynoecium, the swollen part of the gynoecium or the proximal end of the gynoecium is called ovary. Inside the ovary, ovule is there, and in ovule female gametophyte or embryo sac is present. So ovary part, for part purpose you remember the stigma, style and ovary. These are the 3 parts of a typical gynoecium or typical carpel. So this much part you remember, and in next session we will begin, because slowly we study at a time. If all the things or so many topics we cover in one session, then for my side it is okay, but for the student purpose, because you study all these things for the first time, secondly the class 12th is most important for your examination purpose, so slowly you read all those things. So this much you remember for the flower, and then in next session we will begin from the androecium, that what is the structure of anther, because already now you know what is the structure of stamen. So this much you remember for today's session. The students who are new for the session, they kindly subscribe my channel, like my videos. If you have any doubts, any difficulties, so kindly mention those doubt and difficulty from chapter 1 as well as from this chapter also, okay? And by the new session, stay motivated and stay blessed.